The Sten is one of Britain's iconic Second World War small arms. Two men are principally responsible for its development: Harold John Turpin and Colonel Reginald Vernon Shepherd, a pair of British small arms and engineering experts with considerable experience. Turpin was born in Kent in 1893 and served his apprenticeship as a draftsman. In 1922, he joined the drawing office at the Royal Small Arms Factory, Enfield, Britain's principal state small arms centre. Shepherd was born in 1892, received a bachelor's degree from Leeds University in 1912, and in October 1914 he joined the West Yorkshire Regiment as a second lieutenant, serving in both Gallipoli and Egypt. After the war, his engineering background saw him assigned as second assistant superintendent at the design department at Enfield, and subsequently promoted to captain. The two men found themselves joining Enfield at around the same time, and in November 1933, Shepherd, now a major, was appointed Inspector of Small Arms, Class 2, and assisted in getting the Bren light machine gun into service. He remained at Enfield until 1936, when he retired from the army and spent a short spell at BSA before being recalled. In late 1939, Major Shepherd returned to active service and once again took up the position of Inspector of Armaments, this time at the Ministry of Supply's Design Department at Woolwich Arsenal. By the outbreak of the Second World War, Turpin had become a senior draftsman at Enfield, and when the development of the Lanchester machine carbine began, he was paired with Major Shepherd to draw up the technical drawings for production of the new gun. The two men decided that a simpler, cheaper submachine gun could be produced, and in December 1940 set about designing it, with Turpin in the lead. During the winter of 1940-41, the first prototypes were built. Development of the first Sten, then known as the T40, was completed in January 1941, taking just 36 days. 14 pilot models were ordered, but only 2 were completed in time by engineers at the Philco Radio Works in Middlesex, T40/1 and T40/2. The gun was initially designated the T40, or Turpin 1940. By the end of January 1941, it had become known as the ST machine carbine. And finally, the machine carbine Sten Mark I was approved for issue on the 7th of March 1941, with 100,000 of the new guns ordered. But how did the gun become known as the Sten, and what did Sten stand for? We know that the S stands for Shepherd, and that the T for Turpin. But what about the EN? It's generally accepted to represent Enfield. Why? Because Enfield is synonymous with British military firearms. Additionally, the Bren light machine gun's name is a portmanteau of BR from Brno, the location of the Czech factory where the ZB-26 series of light machine guns originated from, and EN for Enfield, the British factory that anglicised the design for British manufacture and service. Enfield, however, wasn't where the Sten was designed. Turpin and Shepherd claimed that most of the work on the design had been done out of hours. Additionally, during the winter of 1940, the Armament Design Department was relocated from Enfield to a former drill hall in Cheshunt, Hertfordshire, to escape the bombing of London. While the Sten may not have been designed at Enfield, the first prototype was partially assembled there, with work also done at Turpin's own home workshop. A further 46 pre-production pilot models were later ordered from Enfield in February 1941. Intriguingly, early accounts suggest that the EN may have stood for England, not Enfield. In October 1942, the 5th instalment of Know Your Weapons, a semi-official series of weapons manuals printed by the publisher Nicholson and Watson, explained that EN did in fact stand for England. In June 1943, Turpin penned a semi-anonymous article for the Model Engineer about the design and development of the gun, which repeated this claim. In October 1943, an article appeared in the US magazine Popular Mechanics, entitled Machine Guns from Backyard, which included a supposed quote from the inventors explaining that the E and N stood for England. A more official account came in June 1949, at a hearing of the board of the Royal Commission for Awards to Inventors, a board set up to reward inventors who had done important war work. During Colonel Shepard's interview, one of the board members, Lord Justice Sir Lionel Cohen, asked, "Why was it called the Sten?" The Colonel replied, "It was called the Sten by the Director General of Artillery. The S was for my name, the T was for Mr. Turpin, who was my draftsman and who did a very large amount of the design. And the EN was for England. That is the origin of the name, for which I accept no responsibility." This suggests that the EN standing for England may have originated from the upper echelons. Sadly, there was no officially published explanation of the name, as official manuals rarely go into superfluous detail. In 1949, however, Ian Hay published ROF, The Story of the Royal Ordnance Factories, 3948, in which he stated that the EN was a reference to the Enfield factory. Similarly, another early published account, D.M. Ward's 1946 The Other Battle, A History of BSA, also suggested it represented the name of the factory. In truth, it's difficult to know exactly what the EN stood for. It may be that both Enfield and England were discussed and used by various individuals and offices. There may have been an element of propaganda to the inclusion of England in the weapon's name, which led senior officers to push this in the press, and direct the gun's inventors to suggest that this was the case too. And of course, the authors of those earlier books could have mistakenly believed that the EN stood for Enfield, as it did in Bren. Personally, I'm inclined to follow the primary sources attributed to the two men responsible for the design, and believe that EN, at least initially, stood for England. Shepard was awarded an OBE in January 1942 and became Assistant Chief Engineer Armament Design. He was promoted to Lieutenant Colonel in August 1943 and retired from active duty at the age of 55 in January 1947. On his retirement, he was granted the honorary rank of Colonel, and he died in April 1950, aged 58. Turpin retired from RSAF Enfield in 1953 and died in April 1967, aged 74. Beyond a pair of discretionary payments, £1,500 to Shepard and a small payment of £200 to Turpin, neither man was officially rewarded, as they were deemed to have essentially done what they were paid for, designing small arms. Scant reward and recognition for a weapon which became one of the key wartime small arms of the British and Commonwealth forces. Thanks for watching, guys. This is the beginning of a series on the Sten Gun, with many more installments to come. Feel free to weigh in the comments section below on whether you believe EN stands for England or Enfield. If you enjoy our videos, please consider supporting us on Patreon or over on Ko-fi.com with a one-time donation. You can also really help us by sharing these videos with friends. Tab is an entirely viewer-supported project, and we very much appreciate all of your support. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.